supposed to scare you and make you nervous. It's sort of like terrorism, because actually the pedophile rings are terrorists. All of society lives in fear of them people getting their children and hurting their children. You know, they want us to live in fear, and they do a lot of other things besides rape and murder and kidnapping, that kind of stuff. You know, they're traipsing around after dark, peeking in windows and tampering at vehicles and just doing stuff that they seem to think is funny.
It's funny. It's terrible. I mean, it infuriates a lot of people. I've talked to a lot of victims, and we've had clothes, like you said, buttons missing, holes in the crotch, ripped underarms, coats damaged, everything. I have a girl I just talked to, and she said she has a bag full of clothes they cut holes in. Why little holes? I mean, little holes everywhere. It's like their signature.
Yeah.
It's just,
yeah, it is.
Yeah, and what do you do about it? You can't call the police and say, hey, there's a hole in it. If you did have enough damage and you wanted to call a police officer, you'd probably get one that was involved, so you can't get anywhere with that.
Right. That was a problem with the infiltration, and I had mentioned Gunther Rustbacher before, that was one of the CIA, that said the order went out to eliminate pedophile rings, and he said the same thing that I had mentioned before, that we did not know how much damage by infiltration the New World Order had done.
And from our last interview, I remember you telling me that you do believe this is a New World Order issue. The government is coming in, and we talked about the devil's disciples walking earth like Christ's disciples did a long time ago, only they're here to do damage.
Yeah. And again, they are a terrorist group. Everyone, from the youngest to the oldest, that is involved with the Satanists are militant. Squad cars that they rode around with, that was the same thing as a Sherman tank to them people. That was their armor vehicle. See, to them it was, because they were so many of them that was in law enforcement. But all of them are militant. What I witnessed in my lifetime was a bloody coup. You know, it got stopped in 85 by infiltration. Now the people that's in law enforcement, if they're a Satanist and they're pedophiles, they're kidnapping, slaughtering innocent civilian people, then they're dead, because the FBI and the CIA is taking them people out. I happen to know that. Now Jack Kitten and the one I live with, they took him out. Sure, he looked like a heart attack, but they eliminated that scumbag, and he ain't the only one. But so this is something that I know is true that Gunther Rustbacher said. That me and him seem to be about the only two people that are saying this so far that I've found. And I've just run across him like really recently, but he's saying the same thing, you know, that the order is to take them out. Well, yeah, they're too dangerous to do anything else with. And when you have a system that slaps people on the wrist and turn them loose, you can't let somebody loose when you don't know how many hundreds or how many thousands of people they've been involved with slaughtering. And again, a whole bunch of them is women and children, but they're civilian people. So a coup's not a military operation where you have a north and a south in that sense, and they shoot each other down on a battlefield. You know, it's different. When a coup happens, it's something that's unstoppable, it's political, and somebody takes over a government, and it's usually rapid. In my case, we don't know what day they took over, just sometime shortly after World War II. But they sure stayed strong. They run this country for 30 years that I know of, and there's still a lot of them out there, man, because there's still people missing absolutely all over this country.
Yeah, more and more are missing, and more are dying through the organized stalking and satanic ritual abuse and the Nazi infiltration that we have discussed. What else do you think the listeners might want to know about you? Are you going to talk about the Texas serial killer?
Well, the Texas ones was around. I named the ones that I could think of at the moment. Dr. Alexander, he was the richest one, and that outcome that's supposed to be up for sale, and it may have already sold.
So he is an unknown serial killer. I mean, he hasn't been proven as a serial killer. You just know from his satanic background.
I know that he's under federal investigation, and he has been since '84. He got a little bit too aggressive, and the CIA run him off the road. I know they did, because he come to work with his arm in a sling because he had been run off the road, and I thought, yeah, you got too big for your britches is what happened, because he was discovered by the time that happened. He was discovered because once my sister was rescued in November of '84, she was undercover and she could name names in some of these counties, and that was really important, you know, because she had a photographic memory, and it was great that she could name certain people, and he was one of them. And the federal people and other law enforcement that was in Fort Worth, she could name some of them, and I could only name two of them at the time, and that was Mike Vaughn and Jack Ferris.
All right. I'm sorry?
But he was probably the richest one I was ever around. I don't know how much his personal worth is, but Alcon Laboratory, if it's going to sell to Novartis, whatever that is, I've never actually heard of it. It's supposed to be up for sale for $39 billion. That ain't million, people. That's billion. That's a lot of money. That's a rich Satanist right there.
Well, aren't a lot of Satanists involved with corporations and things like that? Isn't that pretty well known?
Probably so, because the money is there for any kind of education they want. Unlike most people that struggle real hard, you know, and eat a cracker and an apple every day if they're lucky and try to get their way through college, you know, plain old poor folks struggling. They have the money to do anything they want. They can be doctors and lawyers. There's plenty of them involved with it. Bob Bolin was the lawyer in Texas that I happened to know. I knew him before he was a lawyer. He actually came to Butler County and posed as being from DeVry, which is online. There used to be coupons you could tear out of magazines and send off, and they give you information on college classes, you know, and no one's supposed to show up. How in the world he got my little coupon and showed up, I had no idea, but he showed up while I was pregnant with William and posing as being one of their people. And again, I recognized him, and I had to pretend not to because he was in Butler County. You know, I didn't have no law enforcement to call then, but there's district attorneys involved with it and stuff like that. He also posed shortly after that as an insurance salesman named Tom Wolf, and the little calling card he gave me said Tom Wolf Insurance on it, and I said, there's no phone number, and he says, oh, and so he gave me a number, and I wrote it down real fast, and when I called it, imagine the shock. You would not believe who answered it. District Attorney's Office in Fort Worth, Texas. I could not believe it. This was, I think, spring is maybe 73 or 74, and I said, you know, while you're on the phone, I want to tell you what I think his name really is. I think it's Bob Bolin, and he might be a lawyer by now. I don't know. Y'all might want to check him out. What I didn't know is that one of their district attorneys in Fort Worth was a Satanist also, and his good friend was the Nazi I married. It was his aunt named Violet Easton, and so that was risky business. But I don't know if he was there in the 70s or if he was there like in '84. But when my son got his paternity test from Carlos Santana, the DA was actually recording us from a van while we were talking, you know, and we had just got blood work from my son.
Debra, we're almost out of time. Is there anything else that you would like the audience to know? Because you have a very interesting background, and it's very extensive because you were involved, like I said, with Eric Clapton and Carlos Santana and Militia One, and you just have a very extensive background in this. What is it you'd like the audience to know?
Well, I recently got a message that what I'm talking about is top secret, and I said, yeah, and I'm going to keep on talking. I appreciate all my heroes, you and everyone else in alternative media, Chris Henry, Greg Matthew, all of y'all that let me tell the truth, because my media turned its back on me for so long. They know Eric and Carlos, right? They know me because I hung around with them guys, and they have never approached us and said, we want to help you, this is hurting too many people, this is hurting your children, which it is, and we need to help. They never have. The mass media that we're watching every day is turning their back on us. So thank God that you guys will let some of us get on here and tell the truth. And believe me, it's not easy defying the CIA and the FBI and Interpol. It's not easy to defy them, but this has got to end.
Well, it just seems like it's ongoing. You know, the New World Order is trying to move in, the Nazi infiltration that we spoke about last time, and of course this time. You are very convinced that it is on every level of our government, state departments, regular departments, every department, every level of infiltration.